Go.
All right, today I want to share with you a presentation on the art of close reading. And thank you for letting me present it at our PLC today so that we can learn more about close reading. What is close reading? I know a lot of us have heard about it through our different in-services and things like that. But close reading is simply the reading and rereading of a text. It basically means that you use the very same text over a period of several days, and you keep rereading that same text to find new information in it. It essentially is the peeling back of layers, if you will. A lot of times, even as an adult, I can read a text and maybe get some things out of it, but if I go back and read it again, I'll always find something that I missed the first time. And it also forces our students to actually evaluate the text, not just read it one time, think they get something from it, and automatically move on to something else. They really have to look at the text in depth. Why use close reading in your classroom? Close reading has always kind of been around. Some teachers have used it. It hasn't been as popular as it is now, but since the passing of Common Core state standards, it's become a very hot topic in education, and it's something that we hear a lot about in our higher grades. And the reason that I wanted to share it with us today is because there's not a lot of close reading done in kindergarten and first grade in the lower elementary grade levels, and it can be a very good thing. It helps to build on their background knowledge that they already have. It also helps our students to build stamina, and especially if we can start in grades as early as kindergarten. This will help them as they move on throughout elementary school and then middle school. It will help them to continue to read longer and not get frustrated maybe when they have to go back and look at the text over and over to find something that they need. It also helps them to decode difficult text, because as we'll talk in just a minute, when you're doing close reading, because they're going in and they're breaking down different parts of that text, when they encounter a text later on in school that's a little more difficult for them to read or to understand, they can use some of these decoding strategies to actually break it down and have a better understanding on their own. It essentially enables students to act as reading detectives. And I think sometimes too, especially in kindergarten, you know how it is, if you can put a cute little name on it to give it a different spin, they love it. So if you can tell them they're a reading detective, they'll be happy to do it. As far as my personal experience with close reading, when I did my student teaching in 4th grade, obviously we did a lot of close reading there. But as far as my personal experience as the teacher of the classroom, I've only experienced it from the kindergarten level. And I've noticed several different things. The first thing I've noticed is never, and I know Kristen's told us about when she had started using it too, never have any of my kids said, Miss Whip, we've already read that book. And I start with the book on Monday, and I read this same book Monday through Friday. And I don't even just pick it apart and read sections of the book. We read the whole entire book, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The thing is, we do something different with it every day. And what that looks like basically each week is Monday is just a cold read. It's their read for enjoyment, kind of to introduce the story to them. Usually on Monday, what I'll have them do is to listen for words they might not understand or words they might not have heard before. And we'll talk about those words at the end of the story. On Tuesday, it's vocabulary day. They know it's vocabulary day. In fact, this morning, after I kind of introduced our lesson and we talked about what story we had read yesterday, I was like, it's Tuesday, so what's today? And they were all like, vocabulary. So they've gotten used to it and they really enjoy it. What we do with our vocabulary is we go over the words for the week that are from the story, and they create a gesture for each one of those words. So then on Tuesdays, when we read the story, they actually are listening for those words, and then they do the gesture as they hear the word. It also, on Wednesday and Thursday, we reread the same story, and what I'll do is I'll pull a couple of text-based questions to use as essential questions, and that's what we'll do on Wednesday and Thursday. We always try to do one question per day. That way I have plenty of time to read the story again, and then we'll actually go back and I'll have them to flip through. Sometimes I'll even pass the book around and let them actually flip through. Obviously they're in kindergarten, they can't necessarily find the words that go along with what we're looking for, but they will usually be able to find the picture and know, oh, on this page is when you said he did so-and-so. And then on Friday, we usually try to incorporate some type of reading and writing together. So we'll read the story again. For example, last week, I did the book Gingerbread Pirates. On Thursday, our essential question said something like, you are the captain of the Gingerbread Pirates. You see an unknown man coming towards you. What would you do to save your crew? Because that happens in the story, but it put them in the position where they had to make a decision and pretend they were in the story. And that's kind of what close reading does. It kind of shifted everything with the Common Core standards from just who and what to why and how. It forces them to have to really think deeper. So they had to answer that essential question on Thursday. So then on Friday, what we did is I actually gave them paper and they illustrated their plan on Friday. So they actually drew them protecting their crew, what they were going to do. So like I said, thankfully they've never said, we've read this 5 times already, because we do something different with it every day. It does help them build vocabulary, and it's not just a vocabulary lesson on Tuesday once a week, because every day we're reviewing that vocabulary. And because it's a little more difficult text than what we might normally use in kindergarten, it's words that they normally wouldn't talk about. That's like you can ask any kid in my room, because they love to share this word. You can say, how do bats see where to fly in the dark? And they'll tell you echolocation. And it's because we did a nonfiction book on bats. We close read it, and for whatever reason, that's the vocabulary word that stuck that week. I think they just thought it sounded neat, but they'll remember those vocabulary words. And I think a lot of it too has to do with the fact that we do the gestures with them. But they'll also, I talked about the text-based questions. That's something we do every week. They do that in the upper grades, of course, too, but it's a lot easier to do in kindergarten than what you would think. There are 3 main close reading strategies. The first one's annotation. And that is what strategy is used in the upper grades, to where you'll see students read a text, they'll underline certain things that they have questions about, they'll write notes in the margin, and each day that they go back and read, the teacher will usually have them do something extra with it so that they can pull all their information together at the end. Obviously, at the kindergarten level, that's not going to happen. They can't sit there and pull that out and make notes and things like that. But the strategy that we can use is the read aloud strategy, which is obviously, would be the easiest for us because we have read aloud time anyway. And then lastly, one of the other strategies is technology. If you're in the upper grades, they can look up information about the words they don't understand as they move along through the text. It is under very hot debate because it's just like anything else new in education. You have half the people like it and think it's a good idea. Half the people don't like it. The big argument for our grade level is just that it's difficult for kindergarten and first grade students to do it because they can't do it on their own. Well, what do we teach in kindergarten that they really can totally independently do from the very beginning? Not much. That's why we're here. So it can be used in kindergarten. You just have to have the patience to incorporate it, and then once they get used to it, it's good to go. It is difficult for students with little background knowledge, and that would be, a lot of our ELL population. And Ms. Mills and I were talking about this the other day. A lot of our ELL students, they may understand what we're saying as far as when I read the story to them, they can identify the words I'm using. They know what I'm saying, but they can't apply it. They don't know what it means. For example, today in our small groups, we were blending words and we had the word dot. So we wrote the word and I had them draw a dot. Well, they could blend the word and they knew it said dot, but then they looked at me and said, Miss Witt, what's a dot? Because even though they could say it, they didn't understand what it was. So that does make it a little more difficult for close reading with them if they don't have the same background knowledge. But I have loved it in my classroom. It's something that I think my students have done really well with, and I don't see a problem with using it in kindergarten, and I think it can be very beneficial to them. So, do you have any questions for me?
Can you do this if
You could do this with pretty much any text that you choose to do it with. It's just, you want to make sure that you find a text that has enough meat to break it down like that. I mean, obviously, you're not gonna pull out a little 2 or 3 page book from your shelf. You can do it with, the good thing is fiction, nonfiction, you can even do it with nursery rhymes, things like that. They do suggest that in the upper grades where the students are reading themselves, that you choose a text to do it with that is like 1 grade level above their text so that they can actually decode it.
So, I do have a
So,
question.
yes, ma'am.
Gestures, do you look for vocabulary words that's easy to make a gesture? Do you
Not-
look for something that's that's, what you said about, I didn't hear your word, like nocturnal, did you say nocturnal? What was it?
Echolocation.
Echolocation. Is that something that you'll see that them using on their standard of testing? I mean, you're putting a lot of time on this word that they'll probably never
Right.
hear again until they get 5th grade
It just
science.
depends, like, that was the only big word that week. Okay, for example, this week I'm doing nonfiction, and our story this week's on reindeer, because where it's near Christmas, it's
Right.
something that they are interested in. Half of my kids didn't even know that reindeer, there is an animal
A
that
real
is really
reindeer.
real called a reindeer, that
That's
it's not
awesome.
just Santa and the reindeer. But one of our words this week is Arctic, and then one of our words is mammal. So it's like, it just, you kind of pick and
That'd be
choose.
great background knowledge for when they get into upper grade
Right.
students.
Right. And so, and you can choose, you know, easier words too. Like one of our words for a story was escaped. You know, and we've run into it in like 3 or 4 other stories already. And like with the Arctic, you were talking about easy to do gestures with. It's kind of, I mean, that's a region, so it's kind of hard if you just try to think off the top of your head. But when I told them, I was like, it's near the North Pole. So they kind of just looked at me for a minute, and I was like, okay, how do you think it is at the North Pole? So they're like, it's snowy. So we finally got to the point where we were like, it's really cold. So our gesture, our gesture ended up being this. So then when I read the story today, every time I said Arctic, they were like this, you know. So, and you can kind of, especially once you've gone through the whole year, and that's something I look forward to next year, to where I know more what is tested at the end for sure. Then you can use that to an advantage as well, because you know exactly what you want to pull from
And
the
one more, how
stories.
many vocabulary words do you get? Because in the text, they have like 5. How many?
Yeah, I usually do about 5. I think this week I have 6, but it depends on, you know, what's in there and what you want to pull out. So, and usually with my essential questions, one of them will be fairly short, and the other one will require 2 parts as far as let's do this and then let's explain our answer. So, and I'm sorry, I know we have to go move our children, but thank you so much.